Hey guys, well today I'm doing a much requested video about the IT Cosmetics CC Cream. So many of you, when I posted, I believe, the video showing where I bought another tube of this, you wanted to know my tips for application because I said, you know, it didn't work for me at first, but I found a way to make it work. So I totally get those of you that it does not work for you. I'm sure there's probably, you know, many different reasons, but I get it because when I tried it, you know, back when it first came out, you know, and it was so hyped about, I was like, okay, what am I not getting? It's not working for me. I think a lot of it back then was it wasn't enough coverage for me. There were a few other like BB CC creams that I liked that gave a little bit better coverage. I think my skin, for one, has improved since then. I don't have as much discoloration. Sure, from time to time I still do. And there's some days that this just doesn't give me enough coverage so that I do have to put on like another powder foundation or something. But I'm going to cut to a clip here in a minute of me applying it so you can just see my tips. Of course, I think I said I wasn't going to talk much in it, and of course I did. But let me just give you a few other tips right now of how I make it work. So what you can do if you find it's not enough coverage. Something that's great underneath it is the IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Redness. I did a review on this back, I don't know, a couple years ago when it first came out. This is my second jar of it. So this is just a great neutralizing cream. It really does neutralize the redness. For some of you, this may just work as your foundation. For me, it's a little thick sometimes. It just depends on what kind of coverage I'm wanting. But this is great under any foundation or under the CC cream if you're needing a bit more coverage, if you find this isn't enough. I think I've mentioned in a past video that I find the medium probably gives me a little bit better coverage. It's one of those, I feel like, with any foundation. If you get too light of shade, it almost does the opposite. Like it just, you know, magnifies all your imperfections. So I sometimes find going slightly deeper, I mean, you don't want it totally different. And then I can always just like bronze up my neck a little bit and like right here to even it out a little. So in the summer, it was great because I could use the light and medium mixed. Of course, now I'm just using the light. And something I do, I would say the majority of the time, not always, because like I said, it depends what I'm doing, how much coverage I want that day. Sometimes I will need to go in with a powder foundation. And I've been using for quite some time the Becca Mineral Powder Foundation. Many of you know this. I just got a backup of this as well with the VIB sale. I like this because it's not too heavy. You know how some powder foundations just totally mat out your skin, or they're too heavy or make your skin look really dry. This does not. To me, this is perfection. It just is really a nice lightweight powder. So what I'll do with this specifically, and I had to do this today because I was blowing my nose a lot already. My nose gets red, you know, my cheeks or my chin may be a little red, or I may need a little more coverage there some days. This is great for that. I'll just take a brush. Sometimes I'll go all over. Sometimes I'll just go in those areas I need. So again, that's something if you find you're needing a little bit more coverage, try a powder foundation just in those areas you need. For me, not only does it help set it, but then it just gives me that little bit of boost of coverage I'm looking for. Now, as far as setting it, talking about that, and I talk a little bit more about it in the demo, I do usually set it most days. Again, some days my skin is more dry than others, so I don't need to set it. But I think for a lot of you, that's some of the issue you were having is needing to set it. It always felt tacky. I can suggest two powders. You want a lightweight powder so as not to make it look, you know, cakey or anything like that. Two that I find work really well. One of them is the Hourglass Diffuse Light. I love this powder. I pretty much use it with every foundation. I like it because it's lightweight. And it just gives a nice evening out look to the skin. I use this to set under my eyes because it's fantastic. It's not cakey. And what I love is the shade. So I am just starting to hit pan on mine there. Again, I use this all the time. I love this because of the shade. So you can see it's really fine, but it's kind of like a slight yellowish powder. It doesn't show up that way necessarily on your skin, but I like that. And again, it's just like silky smooth. I love it. It's not heavy or cakey at all. Another really nice one is the IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores. I really like this one as well. Again, it's a nice lightweight silky powder. However, you can see this one is more of a white powder. I don't know if you can see that on my fingers there, but the only thing with this I would have to say is be really careful, because I notice sometimes when I use it, if you get too much, it will look very powdery and white right where you put it. It is a great powder though, again, an option because it's lightweight. So it just sets a little bit, you know, you're not adding a lot of product. So let's go ahead and cut to the demo where I apply it and give you a few more tips on how I make it work for me, and then we'll chat back at the end. So I'm in my bathroom. Just to show you, this is my old one. It has an airless pump, so I can start to see the airless pump there, and I can't get any more out of it. So I'm going to open my new one, and I usually put this on in my bathroom, by the way, because I use it like the last step of my skincare, like a moisturizer. I think that's the key, is not using a moisturizer. Now, some days when my skin is just extremely dry, I will have to put one on, but I have to make sure I let it soak in like quite a while before using this, or this will have way too much slip. I think that's the key, is it actually needs to adhere to your skin pretty well. So I'm just gonna put this on like I normally do and kind of talk throughout. So let me prime this up here. So that wasn't quite a full pump. So I use about a pump and a quarter. So we'll do another full pump. So I use about that much, but I feel like I have a lot of area to cover. I put it between my fingers like this, and then just dab it on. I may not talk a ton through this. And I'm really pushing it in. It's mainly just so you can see my method of application. I feel like I always have to put it down my neck a little, or it looks like a line. I'm just bringing excess down so that it's a smooth transition. Work it into my hairline good, and it's already drying. I can tell it's pulling a little now. And my eyebrows, it usually sticks in my eyebrows. And then I just kind of pat it and make sure it's really in good around my nose, because I feel like you can kind of get lines around there if not. And around my mouth. And then just pat it in for the good coverage. And that's it, it's quick. It feels slightly tacky to me, but it's not a real tacky. Then I wash my hands. And then I think I've shown this in a get ready with me. I take just any foundation brush, really blend it into my hairline, because I feel like that's sometimes where it can show up, and just kind of blend it back down my neck and everything, so that's good. And sometimes like right around my eyebrows in case it gets stuck in there, or wherever else. But that's usually it. That's all I have to do. And then on most days, if I'm not gonna wear a lot of extra makeup, I just go in with the Dior Lip Maximizer. So I have that, and then I might do my eyebrows and put on mascara, and that's it. So a couple of key things I feel like is really work it in with your hands. And you saw how I kind of distribute it, but then really work it in like you're putting on a moisturizer. Like right now, it's just been a minute or so, I could totally go with no powder. However, most days I slightly powder if I'm going to put on bronzer and blush. I feel like that's a key with any makeup look, so that it doesn't grab on certain areas. I use a very light powder, so if you're worried about this being too dry, which I think most of you have the opposite problem, so if you're worrying about it being too dry, like on some days my skin just feels more dry, I will lightly powder all over with the Hourglass Diffuse Light. I find it gives a nice finish. It's extremely light. I don't have to use a lot of product. It's just enough to where it sets this, and then I can put on my blush or bronzer without it streaking. Now, for those of you that are oily, which it sounds like that's when you're having trouble with this staying, I would definitely try like maybe a mattifying primer before this, something to where your skin is not very slick, or maybe even a something like Bioderma or a toner or something. Put over your face so that you're ready for this application so it will adhere, because that is the key. It needs to adhere to your skin. I feel like most BB and CC creams do a good job at sticking to the skin, but because this one does have more like skincare and moisturizing ingredients in it, it does feel maybe have a little more slip to it than some others. But you can see my skin. I mean, it just has like a natural glow to it. If you can see it, I know this is terrible lighting. It has a natural glow to it. It doesn't look, you know, like cakey. It doesn't look oily, anything like that. So to me, it looks very natural, and it doesn't sink into all the places I don't want it to. I feel like I look totally crazy looking at myself with like no eyebrows. So those are my key tips. Is make sure your skin's not moisturized before. However, if you have extremely dry skin and you do need moisturizers, make sure it's a light one and that you give it plenty of time. I mean, literally feel your face before you go putting this on, and make sure that it does not feel tacky anymore, because that's the key to this adhering to your skin. So this to me has enough slip that you could work it around, you see, but as I'm almost getting finished, it's harder to work around it. So use your fingers. I think that's the best method. I found with a brush or beauty blender, the coverage just is not there. And I know in the beginning, that's why I didn't like this, is the coverage was terrible. It definitely is trial and error. It's gonna be trial and error on how much you use. Just you'll feel a way of starting to put on. But if you think of it more like, I'm putting on a tinted moisturizer, I'm not trying for it to be a foundation necessarily. I think your application will be more what you're looking for, and in turn, it will give you coverage like a foundation. So I hope that helps. If I forgot anything, I will try to put some notes here. Just trying to think as I'm doing it. The best way I feel like is for you to just see how I do it. There's no real tricks. It's just been a learning curve, and the key is to not moisturize my face before I put it on, or it will not adhere. It'll be a slick mess. You won't get coverage. Okay, so you saw how I applied it, give you my tips for application. I hope that really helps you seeing it in action and how I make it work for me. Like I've said many times, some days I can just put that on and it works. It's great. I don't have to do much else to it. And then some days my skin just needs a little more. So that's what, I do. If I need to add a little extra, I do. If I need to set it that day, I do. You have to work with things a little bit to make them work for you. But that's how I found the best ways to make it work for me. Because again, I was in your situation where it didn't work for me in the beginning. But now I've made it work. And honestly, I can say, it is truly one of my favorite products. I do not want to be without it. Now, of course, going into fall and winter, I usually typically go back to regular foundations, switch it up a little more, try some new products, because I typically want a little bit more coverage, and I just like wearing foundation in the fall and winter, where the CC cream was perfect in the spring and summer for me because it just gave a nice light coverage. So I hope that helps answer any of your questions, or maybe give you some tips on how to make this product work for you. If you have any other questions about it, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment below, and I will try to answer them the best I can. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.